Hey friends, I'm Lynn Debilzen, and welcome to Redraw Your Path, a podcast where I share stories of people who have made big changes in their lives and forged their own unique paths. I talk with guests about their moments of messiness, fear, and reframing on their way to where they are now. My goal is to inspire you about the shape your life could take. So let's get inspired. Hello, my friends. I hope you're having a great week. I'm really excited to share this lovely interview with Emily Johnson. Emily is a burnout coach for female entrepreneurs, helping them stress less and live more. Emily has the best bio ever because it's one sentence. And full disclosure, Emily and I worked together. I hired her as a coach to help me with burnout and burnout prevention. And honestly, it just had really phenomenal results in her program. So I invite you to listen to this interview, hear how her path has been shaped, and also to start applying some of what she shares to your own journey. Enjoy and let me know what resonates. Emily, it is so great to see you and have you on Redraw Your Path today. How are you?
I'm fabulous, Lynn. It's so good to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive right into it. I want to hear a little bit more about your background. So, can you share with listeners some context about where and how you grew up?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in San Francisco Bay Area, and I am the middle child, well, at least for 10 years, one of four kids. So you could say that my upbringing was a bit chaotic. There was always a lot of rambunctious in the house. My mom had kids starting at 21, and so there was a lot of energy in the house, which was beautiful and amazing. I have a lot of memories of playing outside with neighbors. We did move around a lot, which is interesting. Now that I'm very much into the personal development world, I'm always like analyzing, oh, I moved 4 times and it was really hard for me to make friends in sixth grade. And that's why I'm like this. So it all is part of the journey.
Did you move around within the Bay Area? So you were always in the same region?
So this was pretty crazy. I was born in the Bay Area, and then at 7 years old, we moved to Los Angeles. So that's a pretty significant move at that age. And then I was there for 2 years and then moved back to the Bay Area, but in different areas. And so it's not like I just nestled back into the friends that I had. And I moved in sixth grade, and people where I grew up were so catty, and I just had a lot of experiences with bullying, and I had a really hard time making friends. And I think that has a lot to do with some of the things I'm working through these days. But besides the point, maybe we'll get into that later. But there was a lot of love in my childhood, absolutely. And I definitely grew up very privileged, and I had everything that I need. Yeah, here we are.
Cool. I love that. Thank you. And thanks for elaborating on staying in the Bay Area, moving around. One joke that my boyfriend and I have right now is every time you referred to the Bay Area, he said, the Bay Area of California. And I finally had to be like, hey, I know I'm in the Midwest, but I know what you're talking about. So, okay, so grew up one of four children. It sounded like your mom was pretty young and lots of chaos. I love the word rambunctious in the house. You said when you came back to the Bay Area, you really experienced cattiness and like bullying and things like that during your childhood.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of unfortunate memories of bullying starting in sixth grade because I was the new person. I didn't have any friends, and the area I grew up was a very privileged area. And I think with that comes more cattiness, it comes more superficial vibes, and that can be anywhere in the world too. But I think specifically the area I grew up was a bubble of very privileged people. And with that is parents raising more kids who aren't self-aware, who aren't very kind, who aren't the best sharers, have the best manners, that kind of thing. While there were beautiful people in the communities that I grew up, there was also that. And so with that, I experienced bullying, and that actually was a huge part of my journey, I would say, is experiencing that from a young age. And then even through high school, it was pretty prominent.
Kids can be really, really, really tough. And I think especially girls. And it's interesting that you mentioned privilege because I think where there is no drama, we create drama and division, and that can be really, really tough for kids and especially teenagers growing up. Do you feel like with your upbringing, did you gain any, were there any external pressures or expectations placed on you or like molds you didn't ask for from your family?
That's such a good question. And I was reflecting on this today. I think the biggest thing that has stuck with me today is my parents, neither of them came from very wealthy backgrounds. And so my dad had his programming of I need to work really hard, I need to make a lot of money, I need to provide for my family. And so he was always really hard on himself to be successful and to succeed and to provide and be that masculine energy in the house. And I think he's always been really hard on himself. And all of my siblings, including me, we're all very hard on ourselves. And that's all part of the journey I'm on now, too, is recognizing that, accepting it, and doing the work that I need to not be so hard on myself and to take the pressure off, which I could talk about for hours, as you know, Lynn. So I would say that was a big belief in our household was be successful, start a business, make money, like to be happy and whatever. That was something that I experienced. But I will say my parents were very open minded in terms of us pursuing our own interests and passions. And they did instill in us like anything's possible. If you work hard, if you want to go, work towards a dream, do it. And I don't think I would be on this entrepreneurial journey if it wasn't for that belief system that was also instilled in me.
That's really beautiful. And it's interesting because I hear when you said he really pushed you all to be successful and really work hard. I didn't hear academics come out in that necessarily, but the focus on success being, and correct me if I'm wrong, but success being seen through the lens of, are you making money? Are you able to thrive in the financial aspect? Was that true? Did you feel that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny that you mentioned academics because my first sister, she was very first sibling energy, went to a great UC Davis college, and she was really academic. And I'm the second child. I was not academic at all. I honestly barely graduated high school. I was like, C's get degrees. I don't care. I almost didn't go to college. I didn't even want to go to college. And I was very much, I'm just here because I have to be here. And I hated school. And they were
Mm.
never putting that pressure on me to do well in school. It was kind of odd. Like looking back, they let me just kind of be a bad student. They would ground me, but they weren't the best motivators to get me to take school seriously. Yeah, there was no pressure with academia, which is nice in a way because it allowed me to figure my shit out on my own. And I didn't really have that, you have to be a doctor or you have to be a lawyer or
Mm.
get into finance. It was never like that. It was almost like they were two hands off, if that makes sense.
Ah, interesting. It's interesting doing these interviews and talking with guests. There's such a spectrum of ways the parents can be, and they never get it right, right? Or they always get it exactly right. And kids just learn from that, or they learn certain messages either way, or whatever way it is. I'm curious, and then I want to hear what you're up to now, but like I'm curious when you think back to high school Emily, what was the path or what was the life path you saw for yourself? Were you thinking about that at that time?
Uh, Honestly, no. I was very much live fast, die young mentality. I lacked a lot of confidence. I lacked self-love. I was just so disconnected from who I was and who I wanted to be. When someone asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I couldn't tell you. I'd be like, I don't know. The role models I had growing up are ones that I do not look up to now. Let's just put it that way. And I think too, I grew up in that era of Paris Hilton, Girls Next Door. And so I looked up to these beautiful celebrities who weren't really making a difference in the world. And that was like kind of the path that I thought I would be on was just get by on my looks and not really have to worry about getting a job. And I just didn't really allow myself to think that I was possible of doing what I'm doing now, essentially.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like something really like meaningful or impactful on the world. You were thinking like probably not consciously, but you were thinking like, we'll keep it pretty surface level, just kind of coast on and see what happens.
Definitely. And I definitely had the mindset of marry a man who's going to provide. That was always my mindset for a good chunk of my life, which is
Hmm.
fine if that's your path. But now that I'm more connected with my authentic self, that's definitely not the mindset I have.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's talk about the authentic self. I like to bookend with guests. So we started with where you grew up. Let's hear about where and how you're currently spending your days.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm married now. I'm in Canada, Vancouver. I spend my days growing my business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a burnout coach for female founders, women in business, and currently building a business, building my career, and working towards being a better version of myself every single day. Not perfect, but inspiring others to do the same as well.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you for sharing. And full disclosure for listeners, that's actually how Emily and I met. Listeners know or will know eventually. I've suffered from burnout like three different times, three different cycles. And as I was going through a job search and then decided to start a business, but had no idea what that was, I could feel myself going towards burnout again. I joined one of Emily's programs and it was so helpful for me just to get some supports in place and be able to prevent myself from going down that path again. So awesome. Okay, we know where you started. Right now you're building a business, you're helping women entrepreneurs focus on burnout and recovering and preventing that. Let's go back in life again. What was the first big way that you redrew the path that Emily was taking?
Yeah, this was by far the biggest moment of my personal development journey. This is kind of when my personal development journey began, was when I was working in the alcohol industry. So I was a alcohol rep for brands like Kettle One, Smirnoff, Don Julio, Captain Morgan, and that was my job, was to market and sell these big brand alcohols in San Francisco. And that was in my 20s. It was really fun. I drank a lot. I was partying a lot. I was out like every night. My lifestyle did not reflect my deepest core values, which I wasn't aware of at the time.
Hmm.
But I had this little voice in my head telling me, this is not your path anymore. You're meant for something different. There's something else out there for you, career wise and life wise. And so I listened to that. After 10 million hangovers, I was like, okay, I'm done. After dating losers, I was like, okay, something's got to change, because I was kind of going down this pretty self-destructive path in my 20s and started in my
Hmm.
teens. And so I don't know, it's like my intuition finally spoke loud enough that I was said, okay, I'm ready for something different. And I think by having those thoughts of, okay, let's change, let's do something, the universe listened and it responded. And so I had an opportunity to move to Canada, pursue an interest in holistic nutrition. And that's kind of the first part of my journey, was leaving the alcohol industry and pursuing something that I was interested in, which was holistic nutrition.
I love that. I love that. Okay, I'm so curious because you mentioned that little voice inside of you, your intuition. How did that show up for you in the beginning? What was the first moment that you realized that little voice was showing up?
Okay, so I still follow this one woman on Instagram. She's really big. It's Lauren Everett. She's big blogger, and she influenced me to start journaling. And I remember I had just ended a relationship with this like toxic guy, and that triggered me to feel like, fuck this. Like, I don't deserve this. Like, I need to make some changes. And so I started journaling, and I just like random little journaling moments that I started to have in my morning routine. And I started developing a morning routine, and I started to build this self awareness without me realizing it at the time. And I started to kind of cultivate this massive life transformation. I had no idea that was about to happen. It was that little voice kind of keeping me going of, try out journaling, try out blogging, or look into pursuing a career in health and wellness. I had this like
Mm.
tiny voice, and it was like these little moments that kind of triggered me to just think differently and to look at my surroundings and realize, okay, the way I'm living my life is not aligned with how I see my future in 5, 10 years.
So you started surrounding yourself, it sounds like, with this person, this woman on Instagram, and you started surrounding yourself with some different messages. And then you started creating a routine for yourself. I'm assuming, okay, so flashing back to my time in like the service industry and when I was like a Miller girl, like this is 20 years ago,
Yes.
Miller girl, and I was a Bud girl and would
So
run
was
like,
I.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so I'm imagining your morning routine is at like 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon because
totally.
that's how the day goes when you work in that industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because, yeah, like I would wake up, I would do a morning routine, whatever. But yeah, like after you wake up with a hangover and you're like, okay, like I can't take care of myself today. That was getting really, I was just getting so tired of having to drink for my job and to be social. I was just getting really burnt out of that. And one other thing I really want to touch on too with listening to that voice is also a huge thing for me when I decided to make these massive life changes was I looked up to people or I asked myself like who do I look up to right now? And the people I felt really
Mm,
inspired by were not sitting in a bar stool at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, right?
what?
Yeah, so that was also a huge part of my journey. It was just following what made me feel good.
I love that. How did you decide on holistic nutrition? How did you realize that that made you feel good?
Well, I've always loved cooking ever since I was a child. My parents are big cooks and I just loved being in the kitchen from day one. But I wanted to learn how to cook healthy. And I thought studying holistic nutrition was going to be so basic of like spinach has vitamins and minerals and this is how you make an omelet. Like I literally thought going to nutrition school, that's what I was going to learn.
Mm,
But I quickly found out holistic nutrition studies is a mind, body, soul experience. And I learned Ayurveda. I learned biology. I learned how our organs function. I learned so much more that I ever could have thought I was going to learn when I signed up for this course or this whole year of learning. So it's pretty funny how I thought it was going to be one thing and it ended up being like so much more in depth, which was a good thing at the time for me.
yeah, well, and it sounds you almost thought you're going to get some culinary experience and figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to do the things. And it seems like you got much more than you were hoping for in terms of a transformation. Is that right?
Oh, for sure. I love this example because the Emily who began nutrition school in 2019 was completely different than the girl sitting here right now. I remember meeting a girl the week I started school who didn't drink alcohol and was vegan. And I had so much judgment on her. And that just goes to show like the type of person I was, right? I was like, oh, boring. She doesn't drink and she's vegan. Ew. Like that was like my mindset. And it's so funny because now it's like, oh, I just appreciate a vegan approach and I appreciate and I really admire people who don't drink. I think that's the coolest thing ever. And so my whole point is I was like, oh yeah, like this is going to be an interesting year, like whatever, we'll see what happens. And it honestly catapulted me into this whole world of health and wellness, which I am so grateful for.
I love that. And it sounds like you grew to accept not just others, but yourself as well through that process.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Can I ask, do you remember as you were going through that year what you saw for yourself as like an end game or even just what you saw for yourself as a next step after that program?
Yeah. So earlier I mentioned the people that I looked up to, they were all in the health and wellness space. I just really admired people who were making a living making recipes and creating workout plans. I'm like, this is the dream. And so I went to nutrition school with the intention of starting a business. So that was always kind of the idea of grow an online business, help others and serve.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so you headed up to Canada to go to school. Was school in Vancouver also?
It was in Vancouver,
Okay.
yes.
So what was the next big way you redrew your path?
Yeah, I think just embarking on the entrepreneurial journey in itself has been the most spiritual experience that I have ever been on. It's
Mm.
opened my eyes and perspectives towards healing and my own development journey. And that was just a massive wake up call to, I guess, step into this next version of myself. Because as a business owner, you have to be good. Like yourself has to be good in order to thrive in your business, in order to serve others best. And so there was a huge learning curve, and there still is a massive learning curve as I continue to grow and scale my business.
Girl, that's why I listen to your podcast because you're reminding me of that all the time. Of like,
Yeah.
you have to take care of yourself first. You have to be good. I love that. Okay, so you knew you were going to go into business, and then it ended up becoming much more of a spiritual journey than you thought. What was that about? Can I ask more? Can you dig into that a little bit more?
Oh, absolutely. When you start your business, you are so bushy-tailed and wide-eyed, and it's you're running on that excitement piece for so long. And then you start to feel like you're on the hamster wheel. And if you don't prioritize your mental, spiritual, physical, emotional self, then you're not going to succeed in the ways that you want to succeed. And so by starting this entrepreneurial journey, I had to really learn about myself, my triggers. I had to become the most
Mm.
self-aware version of myself as I could. I had to learn to not be so reactive, right? When you're in a business and you get a rejection, you can't let that spiral you for a day or a week because you got to keep going, right? I mean, I'm so grateful because if it wasn't for entrepreneurship, I don't know if I would be so committed to becoming that best version of myself than had I not started a business.
I love that. I love that. And it sounds like through that, and even just going back to the Emily that was working in the alcohol industry, you weren't committed to being the best version of yourself at that time. You were committed to just having fun and doing all the crazy things and enjoying life and not even thinking about who is the best version of me. So at that point, your business was specifically a nutrition business, right?
It was.
Okay. Okay. So I know that's not what you do now, technically. So what big turns came from that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I burnt myself out running my business or trying to run my business, I should say. And kept noticing patterns. I first burnt myself out when I moved to Canada. I was a full-time student again. I was working part-time at this like really terrible gym, and I was so stressed, and I noticed how I didn't feel like myself. I definitely was fighting depression, anxiety, all of these really intense things that you go through during these massive life transformations. And so I saw this pattern of burnout, stress, anxiety, not feeling good enough over and over and over again since I moved out of the alcohol industry into this new massive life transformation. It's been a roller coaster. But with all of that, I finally healed. And again, I'm not perfect, but I've learned so many tools. I've done so much research and education around getting yourself to be that best version of you so that you can show up to those things that are most important to you. So I decided to pivot from nutrition consulting to burnout coaching because I had gone through it so many times. And also, more specifically, entrepreneurship is so near and dear to my heart. I love talking entrepreneurship. I love talking mindset strategies to get you to that space of growth and healing so that your business will thrive. And so that's when the pivot happened from nutrition to burnout. And I can't believe it's been 2 years now since I've pivoted from nutrition to burnout. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Well, and I want to ask too, as you were going through burning out yourself. And you were probably holding this vision of, well, I am like a health and nutrition coach. So therefore, I am the epitome of health and nutrition, or should be. The like toxic word should. But were you holding any narratives about yourself as you were going through that burnout? Or what was happening in your mind in terms of how you saw yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I guess even more recently, too, as a burnout coach and someone who is continuing to develop her skill sets and do the things necessary to be successful, I still have those narratives of, oh my God, like I spiraled today. Who am I to be coaching other women struggling with the same struggles? Right. And so I share this to share. I'm not perfect, but what I do know is that certain tools and certain mindset approaches can help you. And that's what I'm here to do, is to teach and to serve, and also not to be a guru, not to be this perfect superhuman, but it's to be authentic and raw and share that, yeah, like I still experience a lot of moments of challenge in my journey. And I still have that struggle of imposter syndrome, or that negative narrative of, oh my gosh, like I'm so burnt out, like how am
Mm.
I supposed to help others when I'm feeling this way? But the good news is I have the tools in my back pocket to quickly bounce back, versus 2 years ago when I was like, this is taking months to get myself back to a normal baseline.
Well, and I love that. I heard the phrase, who am I to? And just that thought of, well, I do struggle with this. So who am I to help others? And I think just that reminder of having been through it and having that lived experience yourself makes you probably the most qualified person in the world to help someone else through the same thing. So it sounds like you stepped back and took the time to rewrite those narratives for yourself and just get under some of those limiting beliefs. Emily, I did not prepare you to do this, but I'm curious. So, one of the tools you taught me that's made one of the biggest differences, and I used it this morning, is the limiting beliefs exercise with the voice recording. Can you share that with listeners? Do you feel okay with just like giving an overview of what that is and how you use that tool?
Oh, absolutely. So, what I'll give a quick background on what limiting beliefs are, and then I'll share an exercise that you can do on a regular basis. So, really quick, when we grow up from like 0 to 7, our minds are very spongy and they're absorbing so much. And a lot of what we absorb is how we are showing up today. So, you could say that as a 31-year-old, you're showing up from a wounded place of a 5-year-old, which is so crazy to think. But a lot of these patterns that we're holding on to are causing us to feel very limited in our lives. And so the first step to identifying limiting beliefs is, well, you have to be self-aware. You have to start really reflecting. You can ask yourself some questions of, so let's say you want to
Mm.
heal burnout, but you're feeling so much resistance towards healing burnout. What you should ask yourself is, what would it mean and what would it look like to actually heal burnout? And I want you to list and think about all the reasons or all of the outcomes of healing burnout, what that would look like. And what you're looking for is an answer that makes you feel something. For example, if you're struggling to heal burnout and you ask yourself, what would it look like to heal burnout? It would look like, I would rest more. And then maybe you have this limiting belief that rest equals laziness, which is not true.
Mm.
So subconsciously, you think less is lazy, and that's why you can't heal burnout, because maybe you grew up in a household where both your parents worked so hard and they didn't rest. And so you think that success equals working hard and struggle and challenge. And so that's ingrained in you. And so once you can identify these limiting beliefs of thinking, for example, rest is lazy, then you can start to create new narratives for yourself and new belief systems. And a way you can do that is just by making a list of affirmations that are opposite of those limiting beliefs. And
Mm.
the next step is that you can record a beautiful recording of your own voice of all of these more positive affirmations that support and debunk that limiting belief that you have. And then once you have that recording, you can listen to it every single morning when your brain is in that theta brainwave state. So theta is that spongy, absorbent state from 0 to 7 when you're absorbing everything. That's theta brainwave. And so you're in that state right before you go to sleep at night and right when you wake up in the morning. And so by feeding yourselves these positive affirmations and new belief systems, you're rewiring your brain. And this is all just neuro linguistic programming. This is hypnotherapy, you could say.
Mm.
And so these are one of my favorite tools to teach my clients. And I also do it every single morning and every single night.
Love it. It made such a difference for me. And at first, when you were introducing this exercise in your program, I was like, Okay, fine. And when I finally did it, I noticed a difference within a week. And it's interesting. And I love that the example you used was one on rest, because one of the tools I now have is I bought the rest deck from the Nap Ministry from Trisha Hersey. And so it's just like cards that talk about rest. And they talk about rest as a way to fight oppression and to fight oppressive capitalistic systems, and just being able to reflect on that, but then also rewire my beliefs about burnout, but also money and health and all of the things. It's been really helpful. And I listen every morning to my recordings, and I love it. And it makes me feel like this little surge of energy. And yeah, and I think it's
Yeah.
something I'll continue to do. And I'll continue to get under the hood of what belief is stopping me from achieving this thing and re-recording again and again.
Oh, absolutely. You'll see that months will go by and you're like, whoa, so much has shifted for me. I have to re-record this because this is no longer relevant because I've rewired my brain. And so I'm showing up differently. So yeah, it's such a good tool. I love it. I love that you love it.
Yeah, I do. So thank you for sharing. Emily, any other ways that you've redrawn your path since kind of moving into focusing on burnout?
Yeah, this is actually really great to share. I think you'll appreciate this. So, I was in Mexico in December. My husband and I have been traveling for the last 6 months, and our first stop was Mexico. We got a terrible food bug or stomach bug, whatever you want to call it, and then I got heat stroke like 5 days later. And so basically, I was out of commission for 2 weeks. And I'm sharing this because I did not feel like myself. I felt so drained and depleted. I was sick in a foreign country. I had to get a shot in my ass to feel better from heat stroke. It was terrible.
Mhm.
And when you're that sick, you like do not feel like yourself. You don't feel like showing up. You don't feel like you just feel like I'm completely drained. I'm depleted. I have nothing left to give. And with that experience, I was questioning everything. I was questioning my business. I was questioning my career. I was questioning what am I even doing on this earth? It was this weird
Mm.
epiphany that I had of, am I following my authentic path? Is this serving me? Is what I'm doing every day in my business serving me? And I had this whole like kind of just yeah, epiphany you could say of okay,
Mhm.
something's got to change. I don't feel aligned anymore with what I'm doing. And so with that came a small shift. It's not huge, but before I was focusing on burnout in professional women, and now I'm focused solely on burnout for female founders, entrepreneurs, women in business. And so it might not sound like a big deal,
Mhm.
but that was an experience where I really had to get silent and listen and allow myself to not do anything for a good 6 weeks. I was like, I'm not showing up. I don't feel the energy to show up. I need to give myself a break and some time to sit with this. And that was a really recent experience where I had to redraw my path.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. Also, don't love that you were sick and had heat stroke. As someone who, when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I had heat rash for a year and a half. And
No,
yeah,
it's
it was
miserable.
it's so miserable. And I know, having just come off of being like down and out from the flu, like when you're sick, you do question everything. You think you're gonna be feeling like this
Mhm.
forever. Can I ask, because you said, so for 6 weeks, I just didn't do anything and I made that quiet space. Tell me how. How did you do that? What were some of the things going on in your mind that
Mhm.
allowed you to do that?
Well, I think the first step for me was I had to accept that was not in a productive mindset. And it was also the time around the holidays, the beginning of the year, and everyone is like, end the year strong, start the year off strong. And that's the energy of the new year, which usually I would be on board with. But I was like, nope, I have no desire. And I listened to that. And so I just removed myself from social media. I don't think I sent any newsletters. I just didn't show up to the things I normally show up to every week. Of course, I was supporting existing clients, but besides that, I literally wiped everything from my calendar. I'm like, I need some time to just be still and reflect and see what comes up for me. And so Obviously, as a business owner, that's really hard to do. Obviously, as a burnout coach, that's hard to do, right? But I really listened to that. And I said, there's no point in showing up when I'm not going to show up at my best self. There's no point in showing up when I'm not feeling aligned anymore. There's no point showing up and selling services that I just don't feel like fit the mold anymore for me.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful I listened to that because now I'm feeling so much more aligned and excited versus feeling like I was pushing a boulder uphill, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds like before that, your business was, I don't want to make any assumptions, but your business was probably like fine. You were helping people, but that deep awakening of what is my purpose on this earth? What am I uniquely fit to do shifted for you in that time. And that led to that values alignment and the alignment with your purpose. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Not kidding, I was bedridden for 2 weeks. And so you're thinking a lot and it's so weird. It's like an awakening because you're just like, hey, I feel like nothing matters except me feeling better right now. I don't care about anything
Hmm.
else. And it also helped that I had a huge month of travel in January, which also I think is important to note because I originally thought, oh yeah, I'll travel India for 2 weeks and still work and do the things I normally do. And I thought I was going to be able to show up and prioritize the business while traveling. But because I got sick, I was like, nope, I'm actually just going to enjoy myself and I'm not going to put that pressure on myself. And solely took a month off, which was really, really, really nice to do. And had I not done the work to accept that and to trust everything's going to be okay, nothing bad's going to happen by me taking time off, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy myself as much and just give myself the grace and the space to heal.
So the world didn't end when you did that.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Yay.
Everything stayed the same. Nothing happened.
Cool. And your people that you're helping probably loved you even more when you came back and have been sharing about this journey and realization because you're leaning into who you are authentically and sharing that with the
Yeah.
world. Emily, any advice you would give to others who are considering redrawing their paths?
Oh man, so much advice. I think the first thing is if there's a small voice telling you to do something that's not going away, that's your intuition, and that's you having to listen to that. I think a lot of people are scared to listen to that, or they think they have fear, so they don't listen to it. But we grow when we're uncomfortable, we grow when we're scared. And so that tiny voice is telling you something for a reason. Listen to it. I would still probably be in the alcohol industry had I not listened to that. I would have kept climbing
Mm,
the corporate ladder and I would have been so out of alignment 5 years later. But that would be my biggest piece of advice is listen to the voice. Also, who do you look up to? Who inspires you? See if you can have a conversation with them. See if you can have a coffee with them. See if what they're doing is something that you would want to do. I think that was really big for me
mm.
was I listened to who do I feel inspired by? Who has the career that I would want? And it's never too late. It's never too late to change your career, to change your path, and to start fresh.
Cool. That is such helpful advice. And yeah, I think listening to that voice, connecting with who inspires you, and even just whether it's just connecting from a person to person connection or doing that informational interview and remembering it's never too late. Love, love, love that. I appreciate you so much. Where can people find you? And is there anything you would want to share with listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really active on LinkedIn, Emily Johnson. That might be hard to find me. So find me through Lynn. I'm on Instagram, aligned with Emily J. And I also have a podcast, Breaking Burnout. So definitely find me there. I do offer one on one coaching, and I will be launching a community very soon for women in business. So I'm really excited about that. Make sure to follow along and stay updated. So, yeah, those are all the ways you can find me.
Cool. Thanks, Emily. Yeah. And I want to plug that podcast. If you like what you heard today, definitely go listen to Emily's podcast because it is her just dropping nuggets of wisdom all over the place. And it is beautiful and so
Thank
helpful.
you.
Thanks so much, Emily.
Thank you, Lynn. That was so much fun.
Thanks for listening to Redraw Your Path with me, Lynn Debilzen. If you liked the episode, please rate and review. That helps more listeners find me. And don't be shy. Reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn and sign up for my e-newsletter at redrawyourpath.com. I can't wait to share more inspiring stories with you. See you next week.